over time, as you collect more and more evidence of your success, and if you surround yourself with the right people, the right community that reinforces that, and if you have the right accountability to kind of carry you through those times when you doubt yourself, then you start to overcome it and you'll no longer have that doubt, and the doubt turns into confidence. I'm Michael Mogill, founder and CEO of Crisp, the nation's #1 law firm growth company. I've built my business through practice, not theory. Crisp started with just $500 to my name and has grown to over 8 figures in revenue over the last few years, earning a spot on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing private companies in America. Our approach has been to take everything we've learned about generating massive growth within our own organization and help the country's most ambitious and committed law firm owners do the same for theirs. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with innovative market leaders from the legal industry and beyond to learn from those who thrive in the face of adversity, challenge the status quo, and define what it means to be a true game changer.
This is Jessica, Head of Coaching Strategy at Crisp, and today we're flipping the script for another special edition episode to get Michael's take on how to turn doubt, yours and theirs, into unstoppable motivation, why success really is the ultimate revenge, and how to turn criticism into fuel that drives real results.
Most people are worried about their own problems more than they're worried about you, and maybe they were an enemy to you, but in many cases they were that way probably because they themselves were insecure and they themselves were worried about their own business and they were worried about their own life, and they saw somebody who was ambitious, and just because they haven't had a single original thought in their brain and they gave up on their dreams, they see someone like you who went after theirs and they resent that and they envy you.
That's coming up on the Game Changing Attorney podcast. Here we are. Welcome everyone to another AMMA.
Exciting stuff. This might be our last AMMA of 2024. Strangely enough, I don't know, these have become some of our most popular episodes, so we continue to do them. So when you guys have questions, and you can text us, 404-531-7691, send us your question. We might answer it on this podcast. But yes, as we get to the end of another year, can you believe it? You made it. Right? When you started this year, you're like, oh, I'm going to do it. And then here you are at the end of the year. Was it all you hoped for? Was this your year? Was it a new year, a new you? I don't know. Depending on the person listening, either nodding along saying yes,
yeah,
or maybe they're like, shaking their head and saying, I don't know.
I don't do that.
Like, I want to leave 2024 behind. There's always that group of people that want to leave the previous year behind in the dust. Like, they're like, man, there's no way that like next year could be worse than the previous year. And then the universe surprises you.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever you're trying to get away from, sometimes you're really running towards it. But who knows? You get to another year. What's the saying? Like, your track record of making it through bad days is 100%.
Still here.
And if it was a tough year for you, your track record of making it through tough years is 100%.
Yep.
And that means that there's a lot of opportunity and things can only go up.
Yeah.
In the new year. So again, it's an interesting time. You've got the holidays. There are some people who, when Thanksgiving comes around and you're getting into the holiday season and so on, they start to let up off the gas, right? You reach out to them, you're starting to get the out of office. They are, they're leaving early, like they're gone.
Yeah.
Right? As soon as
year's over in their head.
As soon as, right before Thanksgiving hit, game over, year's over, I'll see you in the new year. And then there's those savages that they are trying to max out the year. They're getting all the pieces together. It's like, industrious mouse, right? They're trying to lay the groundwork for the new year. So when the new year starts, they hit the ground running. The first example here, the former, like they come into the new year and they're shell shocked. It's like they were cryogenically frozen and now they're being defrosted slowly.
Yes.
Slowly. And they're starting to get things together and they're starting to, they got to catch up on emails and they got to get things organized. And then it's almost like the end of the year, they threw up the papers and said, fuck this shit. And then they came back in January and now they're picking up the papers, right? And they're trying to figure out, okay, so it takes them sometimes a few weeks to get in gear, sometimes a month or two, and then it's, back going through the motions. Versus the second group that was proactive, especially towards, the end of the year, especially in quarter four, and they come into the new year, they're hitting the ground running. It's like, boom, the race has started. It's like an F1 go. And they're ready to roll because they set their intentions the prior year. They laid out all of their targets, their vision for the upcoming year, the framework, and they're going to figure things out as they go along. But they come in with a proactive plan and they've got clarity and they're ready to go. And it's go time, and not just for them, for their organization as a whole. So which one are you? You probably know. I mean, if you're listening to this, you know which one you are. right? I'm not here to, I mean, I guess I am judging you, depending on which one you are, but you're probably judging yourself because maybe there's some people that are patting themselves on the back and saying, okay, well, I worked really hard. I deserve a vacation. Sure you do. Nothing wrong with taking a vacation. We're probably going to take a vacation. Nothing wrong with that. Did you set yourself up for success at the end of the year so you can start the next year, right? Because if you're on vacation, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I'm getting away from the business and, I don't want to deal with any of this. I'm going to deal with it in the new year. Well, it's going to be here before you know it, and it's going to be twice as hard and twice as painful, and you're going to have to go through a good bit of suffering as opposed to getting things right before you head out so you have a plan, so then when you're on vacation, you can actually be on vacation. You can be present where you are.
Yes.
So that's the biggest thing. I could tell right out of the gate. And by the way, this is independent of somebody's like firm size, revenue, anything else. But I'll tell you, if you're not where you want to be in life and you are, let's say you're struggling financially, you're worried about money, you're worried about taking care of the people around you, your team, your clients, your family, etc., there is no vacation. There is no Thanksgiving. There is no Christmas. There is no New Year's. That would be irresponsible. Those holidays are a privilege. Again, they're going to boycott this podcast because I just said that. You're like, what do you mean? It's a God-given right. I should be able to go spend Christmas Day. Of course, you can do whatever you want, but your suffering will not end, or you get to dictate how long it will go on for while you are basically part-timing your way through entrepreneurship. Sometimes you have to go all in, and then you can shortcut the process that's going to take. So then when you're in a good place, now you can enjoy those periods of time and those holidays, right? They come around, now you're like present with your family because everyone's taken care of.
Oh, yeah.
So to each their own. But in our case, there were no,
holidays were a time to get ahead.
Yeah,
like,
it was like an
everybody
extra
else was
day.
Off, so
Memorial Day,
yeah.
Labor Day, it was an extra day where you can get an edge.
Yes.
Okay? And if someone's like, well, I don't understand. It's like the same people that say when noon happens, they're like, I have to eat lunch. No, you don't, right? You're just used to eating lunch at that time, okay? You don't have to eat, okay? Maybe you're going to eat a little later in the day. Or maybe you're going to go without a meal so you can focus on getting things done so you stop being so distracted all day. See, like, people are listening, they're like, this dude's out of control. This dude's he offended me with Thanksgiving and Christmas and then lunch. He said I can't eat. What am I supposed to do, right? Like, the same people that respond to this, like, in that way, just are not built for this. And prove me wrong, right? Maybe I just, whatever I just did to you, like, that's going to get you to work hard, and you're going to send me some message next year saying like, well, I never skipped my noon lunch and I never skipped, Thanksgiving or any holiday, and here I am and I became a billionaire. And I said, great, come on the podcast. We'll interview you.
Right.
And you can share all the principles that you've learned in work-life balance and how you were able to do it all along the way. Like, absolutely, I'd love to bring you on. But for everybody else, we're going to have harsh truths. Again, you don't have to agree. It's okay, right? But let's speak to realities. And by the way, my birthday's on Christmas.
Yeah.
Right? And there's been countless years where I've been working on my birthday.
Yep.
So it takes what it takes.
Double whammy. Yeah.
All right, let's get to the questions.
Wow, we did not even open up yet with the questions.
Yeah,
Started off with a banger
that
there.
That could be like a segment. Those could be like podcasts. We've been talking about it, right? Of like little monologues. Or maybe people fast forward through this part. I don't know. We'll look at the data.
We'll see.
We'll see.
All right, so let's jump into question number 1. Michael, I've had numerous people in my life doubt me and tell me I'd never make it. I'd be lying if I said that doesn't get under my skin. Is there a better way to respond to the skeptics and naysayers? Oh boy, this one fuels you.
Oh yeah. Well, we've all had our share of people who've not believed in us. And when you really look at it, if we're being honest, when you're just starting out, if you don't have a track record of success, like I didn't, and you don't have a whole lot of money and you have like this big vision, I mean, it's not unreasonable for someone to doubt that, because 99% of people that have no track record of success and a big vision never achieve that vision. I mean, how could you blame them for thinking that about you? Yet there's no evidence of success. That being said, as you go along the journey, it's like, okay, well, what is it? It's like there's different stages. First, they ignore you, then they doubt you, and then they like envy you, criticize you. So it's like the different stages. I probably messed that up. There's like kind of the pyramid of like when you're getting started, nobody cares. Then as you're starting to get some trajectory, you're starting to get some skepticism, and you get the naysayers. And then once you climb the mountain, you get to the top of the mountain, that's where you get your true critics, and that's where the envy comes in. So you can't win at any point really along this journey. It's just the nature of, of having, a big dream and going after it and doing things in a very unconventional way. I mean, you're not normal. The only way that you can shield yourself from any sort of like criticism or naysayers is just to do what everybody else does. Just work your 9 to 5. Don't have any big goals or dreams. Just watch your college football, right? Go out, paint your face, and then, repeat, get drunk over the weekend, forget about all the all your pains and sorrows, return to them on Monday and repeat until, you're 70, 80 years old. And then you look back and say, what have I accomplished? Nothing. But no one's going to bother you. No one's going to give you a hard time for that. When you start to behave in a way that is quite literally abnormal, and you're saying, okay, well, most people working 9 to 5, but I'm working like 9 to 9 or 9 to 10. You're working like 60, 70, 80, 90-hour weeks consistently. And you're doing it and you're not making any money. And you're taking all sorts of risk. And you have to almost be obsessive. And you're doing this for years. I mean, a person looking on to that would be like, there's something wild about this dude. So it just doesn't make sense. Man or woman, right? You look at that and be like, okay, that's abnormal. So most people just aren't going to understand you. I don't even know necessarily that they would, criticize that. It's just to them looks so abnormal to see a human being, like they just cannot relate to you. The best thing you can do is put yourself in a room with other people who are doing the same thing, and then they can relate, to you because you're all in the arena together. What's the question in terms of like, how do you respond to these critics and naysayers?
Yeah, they get under your skin.
I mean, of course it's going to get under your skin because it's like you believe, but nobody else does. Okay, call upon the ultimate fuel source, dark energy, right? So we have this expression internally. This is like why I don't run ads on the podcast. We can say whatever we want. We may end up cutting this out. But whenever someone does us dirty, right, where F's us over, like does just, the copycats, like something where like just complete dupe, where they take our, any sort of like our IP and try to repurpose it, anything malicious, bad, whatever. Whenever anything like that happens, I smile and say, okay, we're about to make more money. Because for whatever reason, it wakes me up, it energizes me, and we always, like literally directly after, we always perform better. So the more of this we have, the more successful that we are. So that's awesome. Now, dark energy is, when you pile up all the skeptics and naysayers and all the pessimists and say you wouldn't do it, and like you use that as a fuel source. So it's not so much using like your vision and your why as a fuel source, right? I'm going to change the world. This is using the fuel source of all that negative energy, right? And it can drive you. There's the saying, like chips on shoulders, put chips in pockets, right? So before you know it, you got a bunch of chips in your pocket because you got this massive chip on your shoulder. And if you look at, let's say, different entrepreneurs, and you're going to like to bet on an entrepreneur starting out. You got the one who grew up and they had the nice, gentle childhood and they, got hugs and, they, kind of the bubble child, right? And now they're going after it and they're starting their first business. And then alternatively, you have somebody who grew up in a broken home, didn't have a whole lot of money, low-income housing. Everybody told them they'd never succeed, and they just climb out of the damn gutter, right? And who are you going to bet on? I bet on the second one every time.
Yep.
Every single time. Because their adversity becomes their strength. It's what fuels them. It actually, in a way, it's like an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
I truly, truly believe that. I used to look at my upbringing, kind of first-generation immigrant. We didn't have, family here. Like, family didn't, my parents didn't have much money. And I used to think like, wow, I never got that leg up that a lot of other people did. And now I look at it today and I'm like, I had so many advantages because I was able to build that grit and resilience that these other people were not able to build, right? I had nothing to lose. I could get after it, right? I had all the skepticism and all the naysayers. I would have, like, looking back now, I'd rather have that than everyone supporting me and telling me how great it's going to be, because then you're overly confident. What enables someone to work at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and repeat, unless you got a massive chip on your shoulder? So in many respects, I think you got to use that as fuel. And then if you really want to piss these people off, if you really want to hurt their feelings and make them uncomfortable, all these skeptics and all these naysayers, like the single best thing you can do, like if you really want to get even with them, you really want to show them, just succeed.
Yeah.
Success is the best revenge.
Yes.
Before you know it, the body will start to feel uncomfortable because they thought this individual who would never amount to anything is out here like doing big things and succeeding. It's going to bother them. Before you know it, like you might as well be charging them rent because you're going to live in their brain. When they go to bed, they're going to dream about you. When they wake up, they're going to think about you. And you might be thinking, oh, but maybe not. Depends how big you succeed.
Yeah.
Right? The more you succeed, the more they will see it, the more they will occupy their brain space. It is the ultimate revenge. You don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
So that's all you got to do. Just focus on you, focus on winning, focus on your organization, your clients, your team. Everything else that is outside of your control does not matter. Just focus on winning. It cures everything.
Yep. You are correct on that one. All right. Moving into question number 2. Sometimes the person doubting me the most isn't someone else, it's me. How do you handle self-doubt when you're your own biggest critic?
How much time do we have? Well,
That's only question number 2. So,
I mean, think about the people you can listen to, right? When you're growing up and when you're a kid, first 18 years, you listen to your parents, all right? These wise people. And then what are other types of people you listen to? Well, your teachers in school. And then there's also your friends. It could be very, very influential. Whatever peer group you run with, they can influence you in so many different ways.
we already see this with our children.
Oh, yeah. But then there's, so like, which is the most influential? A, is it your parents? B, is it your teachers? C, is it your friends? And the answer is D, none of the above, okay? The most influential voice is the one inside your head, and it is you. And if you're constantly doubting yourself, well, I mean, here's the reality. Maybe you're right to doubt yourself. If you haven't achieved a whole lot of success, you don't have a lot of evidence or proof that you're successful. So you got to earn it. You got to pay your dues. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, it's recognizing, because doubt, you talk about imposter syndrome. We did a whole AMA about this, where it's natural, right? I mean, it takes a lot to get over these traumas, right? These are deep-seated childhood traumas that, why do we believe anything? Well, a lot of our beliefs are shared through, basically a function of our experiences. That's our life experiences have shaped our beliefs. It's how we see the world. And if we had different experiences, perhaps we'd have different beliefs. So if you are constantly doubting yourself, I've known a lot of really successful people, multi-millionaires, that walk around and they have to, they carry around like $500 or $1,000 cash in their pocket because they constantly feel poor. They grew up super low income. They were broke their entire lives. They grew up in like trailer parks, right? And even now, when they're as far from the trailer park as they could be, they're in the penthouse now. In their mind, they're still back in that trailer park. And that's where I say it's like psychological. You have to change that belief system, and that takes time. And we talked a lot about this actually at the last conference, my presentation on the second day of like, what does it take to change a belief system? And it takes a lot. The single best thing you can do is really surround yourself with other people who are like just demonstrating to you with your own eyes that what you want to achieve, the success you want to achieve, is possible. Like, people can tell you, hey, it's possible for you, but it's quite another when you actually see it with your own eyes. And seeing is believing. So you have to be able to reinforce that continuously over time. Then it's also the notion of accountability. Like, even if you want to change your beliefs, you're always going to have that resistance when you wake up every morning, and whenever you're about to take a risk of any sort and you're about to exercise courage, there's that voice in your head that says, no, you shouldn't do it. You'll never amount to anything. Things never go your way. You're just, a broke XYZ person from, just people like you don't succeed.
Yep.
Right. And I battled this myself, right? This is why I say it takes time. So you have to like reinforce it. And over time, as you collect more and more evidence of your success, and if you surround yourself with the right people, a right community that reinforces that, and if you've had the right accountability to kind of carry you through those times when you doubt yourself, then you start to overcome it and you'll no longer have that doubt, and the doubt turns into confidence, not ego. Confidence comes through results. Like, you can look back at the results. Like, if you were to ask Warren Buffett and say, hey, how would you rate your ability to manage money? You'd say, pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm one of the greatest investors of all time. Not because I said so, but because the data supports it. If you ask Tom Brady, he's like, hey, man, how good are you throwing the football? He's like, not bad. I've won a few Super Bowls. Or Nick Saban, who we had at the last conference. They're like, hey, Nick Saban, what do you think about your leadership capabilities? He's like, well, I somehow got, a bunch of 18-year-olds, new 18-year-olds every single year to align and work together and win national titles. And I won more national titles than any coach in college football history. So I can't be the worst at this, right? So you just start collecting evidence of success over and over and over and over again until it's just, the proof is there. But another thing you can do more immediately, because that's the longer term. It's going to take time. It could take years. The other thing you can do is really start, instead of, measuring success based on where you are to where you want to be, because that's always going to be discouraging. It's looking backwards and kind of measuring backwards. Dan Sullivan has this concept called the gain versus the gap. And, the gap thinking is always where you're never quite where you want to be, right? I've seen, law firm owners at 100 million and they want to be at 250 million. And they're like, they're just sad and depressed. And they're like, I'm just not where I want to be. And you could turn that around. Or maybe let's say you're at $1 million in revenue and you're like, man, I really want to run an 8-figure law firm. I want to be at 10 million plus. And you're beating yourself up over this instead of looking backwards and saying, you know what? Look how far you've come. Look at all the progress you've made this year or over the last 5 years, or over the last 10 years. And that can encourage you to show you that there's momentum in the things that you're doing. So just because you're not where you want to be, if you're an ambitious person, you're never where you want to be.
Never.
You can instead measure backwards and say, here's the progress that I've made over this year, because it's a great time to do it, right? Or in December, and look at it that way as far as like, I'm taking steps in the right direction. Sometimes you are, sometimes you're not, but that type of thinking, you're instead of reflecting on positive momentum and positive progress versus where you're not. That's what I would recommend there. But you're going to, over time, you'll collect the evidence, the proof that success is possible for you. You surround yourself with the right people. You've got accountability to guide you through when you're doubting yourself. And over time, that belief system changes and the doubt turns to confidence.
All right. Yes, definitely takes time. So, all right, question number 3 to round us out today. After years of scratching and clawing, I finally achieved everything I set out to achieve when I started my law firm. There's this part of me that wants to tell everyone who doubted me. That said, there's another part of me that wonders if that's the right move. What would you do?
Well, this takes a mature human being.
Very.
So first off, I commend you.
Yeah.
I commend you for putting yourself in the arena, and I empathize. And every business owner who's listening to this, you've had to overcome difficult things, just challenges that you would not wish upon your worst enemies. And you have experienced it. You've overcome that, that adversity, that suffering, sometimes the sacrifices. And imagine what happens on the day you overcome it all and you hit everything, achieve everything you set out to achieve. Usually just another Tuesday, right? It's like on a Tuesday and you're like, that's it, we did it. And you feel great for a moment, but it usually doesn't have the feeling you thought it would have. You thought you were going to have this level of like elation and that everything comes together and there's like the parting of the seas and just like, it's like this biblical moment. But in reality, it probably happened at like 2:30 on a Tuesday and you're like, great. And what's next? That's always been my way of how, I've handled those things, right or wrong, right? Now we've learned to celebrate a lot of wins. And I've gotten much, much better about this. So the question is now you look back and say, okay, I climbed the mountain. And then you're looking back and you're saying there's a lot of people that didn't agree, that doubted me, that were very difficult along the way, that hurt me, that criticized me, that made this journey more painful. And you've gotten to where you're going, and now you have an opportunity to just rub it in their faces. And that can feel pretty sweet. You're like, okay, that is an option. But I would not recommend that option. And here's why. Because number one, they probably weren't thinking about you as much as you think they were thinking about you. Most people are just thinking about themselves. And I know this might negate something I shared earlier, but the reality of it is most people are worried about their own problems more than they're worried about you. And maybe they were an enemy to you, but in many cases they were that way probably because they themselves were insecure and they themselves were worried about their own business and they were worried about their own life. And they saw somebody who was ambitious, and just because they haven't had a single original thought in their brain and they gave up on their dreams, they see someone like you who went after theirs and they resent that and they envy you. The trouble with envy, I think it was Robert Greene who shared this the other day, and he said the thing about envy is no one will admit it. And no one will admit it because to admit it, it means that you would have to admit that another person, the person that you envy, that you'll never admit that you envy, is in many respects like that you feel inferior to them. And no one wants to admit that because, again, they see you chasing your goals, your dreams, and in many respects, they look at it and say, that could have been me. I could have been going after it. And I could have been, taking risks and exercising courage, and they see you doing it, and it's much easier for them to kind of pick apart everything that you're doing, saying, well, they're younger than me, or they had help, or the timing for them was better, or they were in a better economy, or whatever. Like they'll come up with all sorts of reasons to justify their lack of courage. And you're still hearing these reasons. Like sometimes they'll say things that are snarky, sometimes they'll go out of the way, they'll start rumors, they'll gossip about you, etc. I'll never forget, this is the best rumor I ever heard about me. Like, I love it. Like, I think we were at this is years ago, we were at a conference in Las Vegas, and we were, a few of us were walking to, like, from the hotel, I forget where we were walking to, I think we were going to eat or something like that, and someone shared with me this rumor going on, that somehow, like, we had some sort of funding, or that, like, we had some wealthy benefactor that was funding the business, and it was, at the time, it was almost like an immigrant trust fund, where it was, and I was like, really? Like,
it's news to us.
Because they're like, oh, he goes around and tells this story, right, about how he started the business with nothing or $500 to his name, and all along the way, he's been receiving funding, right, from, like, I think it was, like, somewhere, like, from Russia or something like that, right? I'm like, I wish, please, where was that when I needed it, okay? I'm sorry to disappoint.
Right.
It really has been as painful as it has been.
Yes.
Right? But look, if I had the opportunity if someone was going to throw a few $1 million at me early on when I was getting started, I mean, this would have made this whole journey a lot easier. Like, please. But then I was thinking, okay, so what compels somebody to start a rumor like that? Because in their mind, they're thinking, well, it has to be that way because I can't imagine this guy didn't have much money having to work as hard as he did and take the risks that he did and do it over time and have to deal with the adversity and make all those different sacrifices year over year over year over year. I just can't imagine a human being doing that and succeeding because they probably were in a situation where they had so much more and did so much less. So in order for them to sleep peacefully at night, they have to pick apart those who are actually achieving so you can kind of normalize and bring this down to their level. So again, I say this, it can feel sweet when you have that opportunity to rub it in their face, but I wouldn't do it because there is a better move. There's a better move here. This is the one I do recommend, okay? This is one strategic. You should always think a few moves ahead, right? You could go on social media and post all your wins and how much money you've made and all the things you've achieved and all the cars that you've bought and the, you know, the houses and the boat. I mean, you could do all that stuff. I mean, it is within your right to do whatever you want, but that's just going to bring about more envy. It's not going to make your journey easier. Now, you may not care. You can say, okay, whatever. You can do whatever you want. Or you can not say anything at all and continue to succeed quietly and never let them know your next move. So you can just put your head down again and keep building and keep building and keep building and keep building and working on the next thing because you rub it in their face. I mean, I already answered this earlier. It's like, just succeed. That will cause them more pain than anything else you could ever do. You going online and sharing like just, you know, like all the money you've made and all this other stuff. I mean, it might make you feel good for 2 seconds, but it's going to create headaches for you.
Yeah.
It's going to create headaches in your business when your team comes to you and everybody wants to make more money because they see, you know, how much money you're making. It's going to create headaches with you with your clients, right? It's going to create headaches with you in terms of bringing out more competitors out of the woodwork. And again, you might not care, but the reality of it is if your focus is on how do I just succeed at a higher level, how do I do better, then put your head down and just win. You don't have to tell people your plans, okay? It's best if people find out when you're launching and you're already succeeding and you've already done it and you pulled it off. No one needs to know what you're working on.
Down.
Lately at Christmas, when we announce something, that's the first people hear of it. Not, hey, we're working on this thing, we'll let you guys know in a year or two, right? There's a lot of things we've been working on for several years that I'm excited about, but we're not gonna make a peep about those specific things until it's ready. Until it's ready for launch, and then boom, like an atomic bomb, this thing goes off and it pops off and they're like, where the hell did that come from? And it's just because you never let them know your next move. Let's say you're a sadistic bastard, right? And you really want to make, you know, someone squirm, be uncomfortable, then, and again, power, true power, is not exercising it. If you have it and you don't exercise it, that's true power. When you know that you could demolish someone and you choose not to, that is true power. It's not when you have the power and then you use it. I'm making this atomic bomb analogy. It's like you got weapons of mass destruction. It's the ultimate deterrent. That's why, right? It's saying, hey, we got these bombs. We could blow you up, right? And you know we have them, and you know we got this fleet, right? But we choose not to. And that is a true exercise of power. It's like, I know I could smite you from this earth, okay? I could destroy you, but I choose not to do it because I'm a mature human being. And again, this is also, where does your focus go?
Yeah.
If your focus is too much on external factors, external people, all these other people, you're pulling away energy from all the things that you could be doing to improve your team, to focus on your family, to improve your client experience, to make a greater impact in your community. You don't have to give them that much time, energy, or attention. When you succeed, it's going to cause them enough pain. So just focus on you, focus on what you got going. It sounds like, you know, you've been grinding for a while and things are, you know, finally starting to go your way, which is amazing. And the best thing you can do to keep that momentum going is just keep going. So you already know the answer to this question.
Yeah.
You already know that, like, which one's going to help you, which one's going to hurt you. So put your head back down, keep chipping away, and maybe take all the people that helped you along the way out to a nice dinner.
Yeah.
Right? The people that are truly happy for you and the people that support you.
Absolutely. All right. And that rounds us out today. Thank you, Michael.
My pleasure. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Game Changing Attorney podcast with Michael Mogill. If you found this episode valuable, here are 3 free ways that we can help you grow your law firm. Number 1, download the first chapter of Michael's book absolutely free at GameChangingAttorney.com. Number 2, you can shoot Michael a text at 404-531-7691 and ask him any question you'd like. You might just hear the answer on the next episode. And finally, number 3, if you can leave this podcast a 5-star review, it will help us gain access to more influential thought leaders and bring their lessons learned here to you. For more information on this episode, see the show notes in your podcast app or visit legalpodcast.com.